Hello and welcome to the top Hearthstone cards of the week, where we look at some fan-made Hearthstone cards from the r/custom Hearthstone subreddit. I'm your host, Froggy Goes to School, and first up we have Rock, Paper, Scissors, 3 neutral minions that all counter each other. First there is Rock, 3 mana 3/3 with Enrage, can't attack, and Battlecry, deal 2 damage to a minion. Then there's Paper, 1 mana 1/3 Battlecry, deal 1 damage to an undamaged minion. And Scissors, 2 mana 2/2 Battlecry, destroy a minion with 1 attack. Each Battlecry demonstrates how Rock beats Scissors, Paper beats Rock, and Scissors beats Paper. Applied to the Knights of Frozen Throne standard meta, these are all anti-aggro tech cards. Rock is a cheaper and more board control oriented Fireplume Phoenix, Paper is a 1 health minion killing machine that is meant to get multiple 1 damage hits in, and Scissors is destined to kill all alley cats and patches. In fact, all 3 cards can kill patches. Currently, the meta is slow enough that most control decks don't need to run anti-aggro tech. That doesn't mean they aren't running anti-aggro cards like Taunt, but they don't need to include cards like Golakka Crawler unless they start playing against too many tempo rogues. But my point is the high-ranking decks already have more powerful and flexible tools to deal with the type of aggro in this meta. If you compare Rock, Paper, Scissors to cards like Disguised Toast, Shadow Word Pain, and Wrath, it really shows the power and flexibility those cards have over this minion set. That doesn't mean these cards aren't well designed, I just don't think it's the right meta. Take these cards and put them in a similar situation to the Gadget Sand meta, where Pirate Warrior is a tier 1 deck, and they could be the tools control decks need to counteract aggro. Frozen Throne meta is nowhere near as aggressive as Gadget Sands. For example, this meta's fastest tier 1 deck is Tempo Rogue. Maybe these could be the cards you run in classes that don't have anti-aggro tools like Hunter. You could run these in a Control Hunter trying to get Deathstalker or Rexar to work. Matched up against an aggro deck, you can use Rock, Paper, or Scissors to stabilize, and then make up the lost value with Build-A-Beast. The highlight of these 3 cards' design is of course the fact that they are all intertwined to tech against each other. And taking this similar concept, it would definitely increase the odds of being showcased next week if someone made a 3-card submission including my 3 favorite tribes, Eggs, Murlocs, and Ragers. And if you don't consider Eggs or Ragers to be part of their own tribe, you're ignoring an entire people's culture. And you know who did that? Hitler. But anyways, if you want to make a 3-card set that techs against each other and works in the Hearthstone meta, info is below on how to make and submit cards. Rock, Paper, Scissors is a great design for intertwining 3 cards in a creative way, so try it out yourself and see how hard it is to design cards like this. Next up we have Magic Lamp, 4 mana 0/5 Warlock minion with the Death Rattle, summon a 5/7 Genie of the Lamp. The Genie is a 5 mana 5/7 with charge. Wait a minute.
Who dares summon me?
So it's a big old egg that summons Doomguard. Now you know your boy is a big fan of eggs, hashtag we need an egg expansion, but this card is way too powerful. I was playing a destructive Warlock just the other day, and I feel like there are now enough egg activator cards, cards that taunt up or destroy eggs, that the deck could actually be viable. The problem is there are not enough eggs, so my petition continues to get more eggs in Hearthstone, but I want to be clear that not any egg will do, and this card serves as a warning to all egg enthusiasts. Don't be blinded by the spherical and edgeless class of the 0-tech Death Rattle beauties, because this egg goes against all egg ethics. That one was forced and it didn't really work. I will stop now. Number 1, I don't want an egg that spawns a minion with charge. In my opinion, Devilsaur Egg is the best designed egg card. Pure 3 mana 0/3 that summons a 5/5 beast after you crack it open. It's situational but powerful when it works. Slow but a big board swing. And it adds complexity to the board by deterring opponent board clears of 3 or more damage. Magic Lamp is just like place an egg, destroy, get 5 damage. It's way too powerful, way too aggro, and it doesn't take into consideration the timing or elegance required to tango the Eggo deck. But where I do like this egg is it introduces a new type of egg, the mid-range value egg. Instead of the eggs being 3 or less mana, what if there were 4 to 6 mana eggs? I want an egg that summons not a minion just for its stats, but for more powerful effects as well. What about an egg that summons a giant sandworm, or the Boogie Monster, or even Blood of the Ancient One? I really like how Free from Amber leads to more Nizdormu's on the board. It's an interesting big minion that often doesn't see play, but in Free from Amber's case, sometimes it's the best option purely in stats. I want more expensive eggs, with Death Rattles that spawn minions of greater stats than its cost, like the 3 mana 5/5 Devilsaur Egg, but in addition, I want to tack on unique abilities of underutilized cards to add flavor to the game. Anytime you can get a player to play cards that haven't been used in a couple of years or ever, it makes Hearthstone pretty fun. That's why I think while Magic Lamp isn't exactly my cup of eggs, more expensive eggs could be a fun way to see more unique high-cost cards played and give Blizzard plenty of eggs to print for an egg expansion. I think this is going to be a record for the amount of times I've said egg in an episode. Next up we have How Long Can You Disco On? 3 mana Warlock spell that reads discard a random minion, summon 2/2/3 copies of it with taunt. We have our discard Warlock card of the week, where another creator is selflessly trying to get discard Warlock to work. We all appreciate your service. Number 1, based off the viability of Serenite Chain Gang, this card can protect the user against aggro by spawning 2 2/3s with taunt. Number 2, the minion requirement for discard makes discarding more predictable because you don't have to worry about discarding spells. And number 3, the cost of discarding a card and casting the 3 mana spell to get 2 2/3s with taunt seems to be balanced. Unfortunately, this card couldn't really be printed. As mentioned in the comments of the post, this card would not work in the same game as Malygos. If it's the only minion in your hand, you can guarantee yourself 10 spell damage for 3 mana, and if you run 2 Drain Lives and Soulfire, it's an easy OTK. Lich King, Blood of the Ancient One, Yasar, all of these cards make it too powerful. The problem is there are too many expensive cards that are powerful not because of their stats, but because of their aura or in-turn effect. Summoning 2 of them instead of the usual 1 for only 3 mana is insane. Unfortunately, I don't think Hearthstone is the one that should change. It should probably be this card. It's a good and fair card if you discard something like Firefly, where the 2 2/3 stats are an upgrade, and making the card more expensive, like for 6 mana, would maybe deter people from abusing the expensive cards in an OTK, but it would also probably discourage people from using it at all. I just don't think there's a way for this to work in Hearthstone. It's kind of boring, but for 3 mana, if you discarded a random minion and summoned 2 2/3 demons with taunt, it's not as cool as copies of the minion you discarded. Even a card like Queen Latifah, which is usually heartbreaking to discard, would be pretty good as 2 2/3s with lifesteal, or I guess they'd be 3 3s automatically because they just discarded themselves. Whoa. I want this card to work so bad because of how well it works for Disco Lock, but I'd rather have a meta where summoning the Ancient One is a treat and not just a 3 mana spell. Next up we have Full Moon Guardian, 4 mana 2/6 minion for Priest with taunt that reads, your lifesteal minions also heal this minion. I don't know about you, but since Frozen Throne introduced lifesteal, even though it was in the game before, I think it's done a great job combating aggro and giving Warlock some of the desperate heal it needed. I think they'll continue to print more lifesteal cards, but for the first expansion I think we know what works well with lifesteal and what doesn't. That's why I'm a little concerned if this card would work. I don't know whether I like the 2/6 stat line. The thing that's supposed to separate this from Stegodon is if you run other lifesteal minions, Full Moon Guardian supposedly should take more than 6 damage because it's getting healed for free. Again, I think lifesteal is still a little bit in its infancy, so we don't know how many lifesteal cards in expansion Blizzard's plans to print, but right now this card is way too situational for it to be played. One easy change is that any lifesteal also heals this minion, and by any lifesteal I mean all your spells and minions with lifesteal, and any lifesteal your opponent plays. So against matchups that rely on lifesteal like Warlock, this card is even more powerful. And for example, Drain Soul wouldn't even work against it. With spells included, Spirit Lash would constantly be good with this card out on the board, and it would often heal all the way up to 6. I do fear that Divine Spirit Inner Fire combo on a minion like this that can stick around on the board for a long time could be a problem, but I don't think there's enough lifesteal in the game to make this so impossible to get rid of just by trading on the board. I feel like this is one of those cards that would really benefit from testing just to see how it would be used and what power level it's at. It's a great idea for one of the ways lifesteal could synergize with another type of minion. Last up we have the big, the bad Bloodwing. 10 mana 9/9 dragon for Warlock with lifesteal, where at the end of your turn casts Defile. We've got big stats, lifesteal, dragons, and Defile. What more could you want? I like any big minion with a powerful end of turn effect, and I get all hot and bothered thinking about getting this card to clear a board of Jades. To be clear, Bloodwing is casting Defile, so the Defile will have lifesteal. What's really interesting about this one is it's going to cost you your 10 mana, so that's your entire turn. It's also probably going to be played on a crowded board, so that means it's going to clear a lot of minions, and it's going to heal your hero for a lot. Like if it goes off 3 times on a board of 6 minions, that's 6 plus 5 plus 4 or 15 heal. But the last interesting thing about this minion is it's also going to hurt itself. Rarely do you have a 10 mana minion that ends up being a 9/8 or sometimes a 9/5, or in crazy circumstances a 10 mana minion that ends up killing itself. But of course the power is the end of turn board clear and that it heals your hero. Still, something to consider, at 10 mana you can't really prep the turn for this card to clear the board like you can with the 2 mana Defile. This also means your opponent can play around this card to prevent it from clearing a big board, and in most cases the numbers aren't going to line up 1 through 9 perfectly to get a clear. So you'll kill a few minions, have a 9/6 on board, and then they can just trade one of their injured minions into it. You heal for a good amount and you clear and weaken some minions, but your opponent can deal with your 10 mana play easily, and now they have their own 10 mana to play. Anytime you give me a chance to play more Defiles in my deck, I'm on board. This card is a one-off Warlock mass heal board clear, but most of all, it's just really fun. Not sure of a couple of interactions, but my confident guesses would be that if this card casts Defile and then it kills itself, the Defile would continue to play out and continue to have lifesteal. If you have spell damage, the Defile does not get the spell damage because Bloodwing casts the spell, not you. A good example of this is Ragnaros doesn't get an increased attack if you have spell damage. I don't see any balance issues with this card. For Halloween, out of the kindness of their hearts, Blizzard should give everyone one of these. Now it's time to look at the user submission. From Tango Mango, we have Millie the Kid, 5 mana 6/8 for Warlock with Battlecry. Discard your entire hand. Your opponent draws as many cards as you discarded. This card would create the oddest game experience. It's an instant quest finisher, so if you fill your hand with 6 other cards and draw this, you'll actually have the portal for the rest of the game. At the same time, when playing this card, your opponent draws a lot, which could burn important cards for their combo or refill an aggro's hand. I originally thought this card was unfair to control decks who want to maximize value and cards in their hand, but the side of the quest or odd card choices in this type of deck should tip off any insightful control player that they should be playing aggressively and empty their hand as soon as possible. I could see decks built to create more cards in your hand like Ignis Elemental, and then play this card to get your opponent to draw 9 cards, putting them miles ahead of you towards fatigue. The only problem I have with the deck built for this card is that you need to draw it for the entire game plan to work, and drawing cards is completely against any mill deck's goal. It's like the Mean Streets Reno decks that relied on drawing Reno by turn 6 to survive against aggro. The gameplay just ended up being dependent on drawing 1 card. If this card was printed, I would definitely craft the Warlock quest and play it, but I think a deck would have to be built around this card for it to work, and that's just too inconsistent to see competitive play. But boy, would it be fun when it does work. Thank you Tango Mango for the submission. There were some really good submissions this time. It was hard to pick, so keep them coming. Info is in the description on how to make and submit your cards. That's all for this top Hearthstone cards of the week. It's been a pleasure as always, and until next time, ta-ta.